have a happy African History Month. Welcome to day 20. This is the episode for February 20th, 2018. Um, Today I want to talk about somebody who is a staple of Black History Month and who's also, I think, is necessary to be talked about during African History Month. Um, because although he's widely, accepted, I think he just did so much and he's such an important historical figure that we can't have a discussion about African history without discussing him and his contribution um, as well. So today's topic is Martin Luther King Jr. And um, one of the things I wanted to do was one of the first aspects I wanted to talk about regarding him is summed up in this shirt. I don't know if you see this. It says, illegal isn't always wrong. And then many of our heroes have been outlaws. And there you see, you have a picture of several people. You have Gandhi. You also have Martin Luther King Jr. And that's one of the points, that's my first point I want to get out, was that Martin Luther King Jr. was a criminal. He broke the law. But a lot of us don't think of it that way because we see him as such a nice guy, such a force for peace, for nonviolent change. But we don't make the correlation that, no, he broke the law. He violated the law. It wasn't that he was wrong. It was that the law was wrong. And that in there is such an important lesson for us, that of not just saying, oh, well, the law says this, so it's illegal, so I got to do this. Oh, so this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it should be. He had the courage to stand up against immoral laws. He had that took bravery. It takes courage to say, okay, you have the system in place. That system has the force of government, which is the force of violence behind it. But I'm still going to stand up and oppose that system. That takes courage. And there's, no matter what else you try to say about Martin Luther King Jr., he was courageous. Yeah, it's something to. It's such an inspiration to see how he was willing to put himself in harm's way. He was willing to stand up and say, okay, I'm not going to obey this law because this law is unjust. So if you're going to arrest me, arrest me. Of course, he knew that the people he was dealing with were not just immoral within the scope of the law. They were even immoral outside the scope of the law, and they would do things like they would beat him and other resistors and subject them to very harsh treatment. But that didn't deter him. Another thing about him was that even in the face of, because we look at the state governments that opposed him and that, did things, vicious things to him and other civil rights figures. But what about the feds, the FBI? And in fact, I was just recently looking at, seeing a recounting of one of the most vile things that was actually confirmed about the FBI. Well, there's a lot of vile things about the FBI, so yeah, it was, but it's definitely one of them. How they tried to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. because they felt that they had evidence that he was engaging in extramarital affairs. And so they said, hey, we're going to publicize this information unless you kill yourself. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was so opposed to his attempts to secure equality for black people that they tried to coerce him to kill himself. that should tell us so much about the government we're dealing with today, about the government period, because we have these despite everything we've seen, we still act as if the government is the good guys, when we see time and time again the horrendous things they are not just capable of, but they have actually done. The fact that this man had to stand up to, subject himself to beatings, to whippings, to, these hosings, to having dogs sicked on him, to being tossed in jail cells, to achieve just some type of just treatment for blacks in the South. The fact that he had to deal with a corrupt and just oppressive FBI to further the aims of liberating and seeing and ensuring that people are receiving just treatment and are their rights are being protected. That's astounding. So he went so far beyond just giving speeches about I have a dream. He went head to head with the government. He was an outlaw. He was a criminal. And he was the good guy. There's no doubt about it. The government was the bad guy. These people attacking him and attacking his supporters and the other civil rights figures. These people were the bad guys. There's no question. But it's interesting that he managed to continue to advocate for nonviolent resistance. It's interesting that it's interesting that now, today, he's so revered. And I think he's not revered. I think they've taken a snapshot of him that they pretend to revere, because that's what they want. They don't want anybody to... Because I think the powers that be think it's more convenient to have people engaging in, okay, just sit down, you can sit in, sing in, hold hands and, kumbaya. We don't mind if you do that. We don't mind. But even then, we'll see the government minds. We'll see peaceful protests be met with non-peaceful responses from government officials even today. But they'd rather people do that than do other things. But we have to take a look at his entire body of work and determine whether or not it was effective, whether or not it was... there's no doubt he was courageous, but I think there's other things we need to look at as well, and listen to, other speeches he gave, other things he was advocating for and against. He was a very outspoken critic of the Vietnam War. They don't really talk about that. They don't talk about the way he spoke about war and the way he was opposed to it. It doesn't fit the narrative. It also doesn't fit the narrative that at the time they hated him. The very same people or institutions that now want to put Martin Luther King Jr.'s face on a stamp couldn't stand the man when he was alive. There was another point I want to make. I will revisit it because, and you'll see soon what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think Martin Luther King Jr. is a critically, vitally important figure to be discussed, and I look forward to, and I encourage you to do more research, to look beneath the surface and not just accept the cookie cutter Martin Luther King Jr. That they use for, was it Dodge commercials? Yeah, yeah. and really learn more about his full body of work. And there's a lot of stuff you may agree with, a lot of stuff you may disagree with. But I think not just letting somebody tell you who a man was and actually studying and researching who the man actually was is important to understand the man. Thank you for joining me for this episode, and happy African History Month. I will see you next episode.